This call is being recorded, but welcome everybody to the first Friday entrepreneurship call with K-State Research and Extension. Victor Wang, the former Vice President for Entrepreneurship at the Kauffman Foundation, defined an entrepreneurial ecosystem this way. He said, humans are ecological and biological animals, so our society is a biological system. Biological systems, like natural rainforests, thrive because of the unplanned, uncontrolled results of countless interactions among flora and fauna. As a result, they adapt, they evolve, and it's similar for human beings. Our society, our networks are a type of ecosystem too. They are rainforests, but made of people. Our world depends on the interactions of people who possess talent, capital, and ideas. This means everyone. We encourage partner sharing after the call. After Aimee, our speaker, is finished. And so please think about anything you might want to share from your world that we might be able to copy in the communities that we work with, or to share with our communities. And so the call is being recorded. I will tell you, it's a very manual process, but if this call does not apply to you after today, I know some of you we invited specifically for the childcare topic, just send me an email. No offense taken. We get enough emails without having to constantly delete things that we know are not applicable to us. So the speaker will be, this is recorded and we'll post it to our online archive. And so you can share it at any time or go back and refer to it. Our speaker today is Aimee Baker with K-State Research and Extension agent from Wichita County. And she's going to talk about how Wichita County worked together to provide quality childcare in their communities. And as I indicated, we've reached out to others who have expertise and experience in their own communities. And at the end of Aimee's presentation, we'll look forward to hearing about you, about how your efforts were either similar or different than Aimee's. So welcome. And Aimee, thank you so much for joining us and doing this.
I'm glad to be here. Like Nancy said, thank you guys for being here. We all know that childcare is a huge issue in each of our counties and statewide. And so it's been really nice through this process to see the state recognizing that and finding ways to extend help and resources and that sort of thing. I am Aimee Baker. I work for K-State Research and Extension in Wichita County, not to be confused with Wichita. I'm only a town of 2,100 people, and I've been working for K-State Research and Extension for almost 6 years. I have 2 boys. I have a 5-year-old Nash who is in kindergarten, and I have a 3-year-old Finn who is taken care of by a wonderful old little lady that, helps us out. So my husband and I farm and ranch. He's also vice president of a bank in Winona, Kansas. And so we are busy people. I also serve as the Grow and Learn Child Care Center interim board president. So, and I will tell you guys all about that. So I'm going to share my screen, and I like to be pretty open and kind of informal. So if at any point anybody has any questions, please just stop me, yell at me. I'm just kidding, don't yell at me. Raise your hand. Whatever works for you. I just want it to be really open and help how I can. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this from my county's perspective and my perspective on how we did this. And so like Nancy did say, everybody's journey through this is different and your experience is different. So this is just our experience. So let's get started here. Oh, I can't. Okay. So this is just kind of an outline of how we're going to go today. I'm going to talk about the state of childcare in Wichita County, how we're investing in our future, our timeline, the road to where we are now. And I'm going to kind of hit really hard on the funding, because I think that's probably one of the most important things that we've dealt with through this whole process. Okay, so what you're looking at is the state of childcare in Leota. So when we started this process, we knew that we were going to have to come up with a way to show people why we need childcare in Wichita County. And so on the left side, you're going to see the current state right now, which is chaos, which is what we consider the childcare desert in Wichita County. It's kind of hard to understand, but that's what we wanted. We wanted to get the point across that if you look at all these different lines, this is moms and dads and finding relatives to watch their kids and having to take off work early, or driving 45 miles to the nearest child care or daycare, in-home daycare. And when we presented this to people, what our point to them was, not only is it time consuming for all of these people to be taking off work or running here and there, mentally, this is a very chaotic environment for a child to be growing up in. And it's mentally exhausting for the parent as well. And we have parents in Wichita County who are currently on a schedule of Monday, Wednesday, my child goes here, Tuesday, my child goes here, Thursday, Friday, my child goes here. And they have told us so many times how crazy that is. If you look over to the right, this is what we like to call the child care oasis. This is where we would have a child care center, our triangle here, that would be open regularly and not having to worry about it closing, and relatives not having to take off work, being able to work their full-time jobs. So mentally, emotionally, physically, this is better for everybody involved in that child's life. Most importantly, the child. Our whole group is big on mental health, and this right here mentally is what you need to, be able to have a thriving family. So I usually go into big detail on this, but if you guys want more information on how we kind of came up with this, I'd love to talk to you about it. Just a little quote here. I'm not going to touch on that. Okay. So as you all know, and as I'm sure all of you have written grants before, or attended a grant writing workshop or whatever, you have to be able to have some research and some data to back up what you're saying and what you need your money for. So it's proven that, early childhood care, and I'm not talking about like your child going to a preschool program out the school. I'm talking about childcare from birth to 5 years old. If they're able to go to an environment where they have a structure every day, and where they are seeing other kids, they have a curriculum that they're following, even if it's a simple curriculum. Research shows that they're less likely to have to repeat a grade. They're more prepared academically for later on, more likely to graduate from high school. And then when they enter into the workforce, they're going to be better prepared. Now, here's my little 2 cents. This is not to say that staying home with your child is a bad deal. I think that's wonderful if you're able to stay home with your kids. This is just showing that if there is a center in your community, this is a way that can better the children. Okay, so one of the things that we thought about as we were going along with this process, talking to government officials in our community and the state, how can we show people who don't have children, who may not think that they need the child care center, how it's going to affect our local economy. So our center is going to create 5 full-time positions. That means 5 people in our community, or bringing people from other communities, will have 5 jobs for them. That's not to mention the part-time positions that we might hold. Next, workforce creation. There may be parents in our community, well, in my community specifically, I know there are parents who quit jobs to stay home and raise kids because we didn't have childcare in Wichita County. So by providing a childcare center, they'll be able to, return to the workforce. Additionally, economic impact. we will be spending, the Child Care Center will be spending dollars locally, and the people who have jobs will be able to afford things that maybe they couldn't before. And so our tax dollars will be spent more locally. Finally, workforce enhancement. This kind of goes back to what I was saying about the child care desert versus the child care oasis, chaos versus calm. You'll reduce work turnover, less people leaving work early, less people having to call in because their child care, there's no daycare, or the person who is supposed to watch their child on Tuesday is now sick, so on and so forth. And also, this goes to the mental side of things. Knowing that your child is taken care of every single day and they're in a safe environment where they are being nurtured is going to help you be more productive in the workforce. Okay, this is kind of, this and the financials is really what I wanted to hit hard on. So I'm going to do my best to get all the information across that I can. I have officially been working on this project since 2017. Okay, that is a long time. I realize that. It started with me reaching out to Bradford Wiles and Jesse Piper on how they could help through K-State, how they could help me begin this process. And so we started with a child care survey that we handed out to residents of Wichita County. They created the survey, and from that survey, we compiled our results, and then Jesse came out here and we did focus groups. Okay, we did 4 focus groups. The 4 focus groups were, parents who already had childcare. And when I say that, I mean somebody who, like a family member who watched them, or they drove the 45 miles to the nearest in-home daycare, or the one in-home daycare that we do have in Wichita County that they went there. So we did a focus group with have childcare, seeking childcare, general public, and early professionals or people in the professional workforce. And so from there, we gathered that we needed a center. Parents were looking for more of a center feel rather than having a person do in-home childcare. And so we also gathered that they wanted it to be affordable, safe, and nurturing. And so we took those things and kind of put those in our head, and that's kind of, where we went from there. So there's this really great lady that works in Finney County. Her name's Lana Duvall, and I'm sure some of you have worked with her before. And we went and met with her and kind of decided, what's this next step going to be? How are we going to do this? How do we prove to people that we know? And when I say we, I mean the intern board. There's 4 of us that are actively really working on this. We know that it's a problem and an issue, but how do we show other people it's an issue? So Shannon Dick from Finney County, he's a analytical analysis guru. He did an economic impact study. And what we found from that economic impact study was that we were short 84 childcare slots in Wichita County. And that if we were able to meet that demand, 67 people would be able to join the workforce. That's just in Wichita County. And from that point, he kind of laid it out to us on these are the things you can do to meet that demand. 1 big center, 1 small center, several group daycares, or several home daycares. And so from there, we kind of knew how we were going to proceed in the next steps. Now, one thing I want to make sure that I kind of point out is that this looks all nice and neat right here, but in the process, I was having conversations with so-and-so over here. our economic development director was talking with Nick Poles and other economic development directors around the state. And there was just several different conversations happening in the meantime that led us to where we are today. So it looks neat here, but, and I don't want to scare anybody, but it's not a neat process at all. It's very time consuming. I mean, it's, you know, been since 2017. So finally, after we decided what we were going to do, we had to look at childcare costs. We had to look at financially, what can we do? What can our community afford? And what would people in the community be willing to support? You know, was that a temporary bringing in like a modular, or was that finding a place in Leota that was abandoned that we could buy and, you know, refurbish, which is what Phillipsburg did? Or did we need to come up with a school partnership, public-private partnership, which is something that Lana had talked to us about. And so we came to the decision that we were going to approach the school about a public-private partnership. And so after some talks with them, presenting to our school board, we entered into a public-private partnership with Wichita County School District. And we drew up some bylaws. We each named ourselves what we were and filed for 501c3 status and have a mission statement. And thus Grow and Learn Child Care Center, Inc. was born. And that happened in November of 2019. That was a really significant point in this journey. And I honestly, truthfully think we would not be where we are if it wasn't for that public-private partnership with the school. And so this right here, I just wanted to give you guys an idea. This is what the Shannon Dick was able to come up with. He has a really data-driven formula that he uses to kind of figure this out through census data and that sort of stuff. So, okay, the road to Grow and Learn Child Care Center. So our group started, before we even became Grow and Learn, our group started to tour other places. We wanted to know, what kind of center do we want to be? And so we went to Moscow. Moscow is ran by the school, or through the school, and is on school grounds, and their preschool is connected to their child care center. Then we went to Greensburg. As you know, the tornado went through Greensburg and they had to rebuild and start completely fresh. And so when they did that, Greensburg, they decided to put their child care center, or their child care center, in their hospital. And that was a really neat facility. The way that they were able to work things with the doctors and the nurses, and just that partnership there was really cool to see. And finally, we were able to go to Phillipsburg, and we were able to tour that facility. And that's when we kind of realized, we fell in love with the Phillipsburg facility, and we realized we really wanted ours to resemble that. And so from there, we were able to kind of gather where we were going to go. Next, we went through Wichita County, finding vacant buildings, trying to meet KDHE regulations to see how much work it would be. I know we got some feedback from Phillipsburg, and they wish they would have built from the ground up instead of renovating something. And so we looked into temporary solutions. Finally, after we entered into the public-private partnership with the school, they're going to lease us the ground for $1 for 10 years. So we wrote them a big fat check for $10, and that ground is leased with us. And so that's when we decided that we were going to build from the ground up. So from there, and there's our mission statement. Our mission is to provide quality childcare that meets the needs of each child and family in a nurturing, safe, and educational environment. And so those were the things that we learned from that focus group that I was telling you about. And we put that into our mission statement and our goals of our child care center. So a lot of people ask us, what does a public-private partnership mean? First of all, a lot of people think that this is a school-ran child care center, and it's not going to be. It's going to be ran by the Girl and Learn Child Care Center. We have our own director. Well, we will have our own director. We have all of our own stuff. But with the public-private partnership, there are some benefits to us and there are some benefits to the school. So we'll still pay for our own meals, but when school's in session, the child care center lunches will be made with the school lunches, and we will have somebody go over and get those in a warming cart, take them back and forth and be able to do that. The groundskeeping, the school has agreed to take care of some of the grounds and help with that. And we will use their storm shelter. And then for them, they're getting more activity parking because we're putting in a full parking lot and replacing some of the parking that we're taking out and adding more. So there'll be more activity parking spots. And then finally, the school is going to have some reserved spots in the child care center. And so that was something that was important to the board, that because that is part of the reason why we can't get teachers sometimes is because we don't have childcare. And so for them, it was important to, reserve some of those spots for. And that does get kind of tricky. We've come up with a way to make the summers work, which will be interesting to see how it goes the first year. But yeah. Finally, our building specifications. Our building is going to be 3,565 square feet. We will have 4 rooms. We will have an infant room. We will have, I'm just going to go to the next slide here. This shows you how it will look on the school grounds. So we'll have an infant room, a toddler room, 2 preschool rooms. We'll have a play area. You do have to have 2 separate play areas for the older kids and for the infants and toddlers, and it has to be fenced off differently. And there's a certain square feet that the playground has to be, and the regulations are pretty straightforward and just have to make sure you follow them. So this is a little closer up look at what it will look like. So we'll only be able to take 3 infants, and that can be kind of a turnoff to some people. They want to know, well, infants are what's needed the most. But if you look at it, if you have 4 infants, you have to hire another person just to cover that 1 infant. And it will literally take you from green to red. We've had to show people that several times that have questioned us on that on our flow sheet, and it really does take you from green to red. So, we're going to be double licensed in that room, and so things can change a little bit. The double licensing does get a little tricky, but we're doing the best we can to meet the need, and we're only going to be able to have 35 children. And as you guys saw, that's not going to meet the entire need of Wichita County, but it's a start, and that's what we try to let people know. So,
Aimee?
Yeah.
I have a question. So when you say it takes you from green to red, is that because that the financial structure is now unaffordable?
Right.
Okay.
So yeah, you're essentially having to pay a whole nother person to be there for 1 child. And so what that 1 child would pay in their enrollment wouldn't match what you would have to pay, and it takes you to red. So
perfect. Thanks.
Yep. Okay, so for our building.
Oh, Aimee, I see another question.
Okay.
You mentioned double licensing. What is double licensing?
Double licensing is when you would be able to have a certain amount of one age kids and a certain amount of other age kids, but have them in 1 room. So like that room, the infant room, for instance, will always be licensed for 3 infants. But if it's double licensed, you can have 2 infants and so many preschool kids. And I'm not going to say the ratios for sure because I don't know the double licensing ratios right off the top of my head, but that's how that works. And so that allows you some wiggle room to be able to say, you know, we only have one preschooler here today, and we only have one infant here today. You don't want to have to pay everybody to be there that day if you don't need them to be. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I think it does.
Okay, so this is our estimated project cost, and we were amazed at how much everything was going to be. We knew it was going to be expensive. We interviewed 3 different architects, and I do encourage that, you know, don't just pick an architect because so-and-so recommended them. We interviewed 3 different architects, sat down with them, asked questions. This also was pre-pandemic when we interviewed these architects. And we finally decided on one from Wichita, and we moved forward with plans and all of that. So since then, that was the beginning of, that would have been December of 19, January of 20. So right at the beginning of the pandemic. Since then, our construction costs have gone up $400,000. And that was a really big blow to our ego, to our self-esteem. We worked really hard to get the funding that we had gotten. And I mean, but you know, there was nothing we could do about it. We're trying to build a child care center in the middle of a pandemic, which we've been reminded by people in our community many times, but you know, we couldn't just stop. There was no way that we could stop. And so I don't know, when you look at these numbers, it's scary, but what we're trying to make people understand is that like you're getting a building from the ground up, and it's going to be state of the art, and it's going to be functional for a very long time. And so we've been able to use these numbers, you know, for grants and for purposes of going to people around the community, getting money, that sort of thing. So if you guys have any questions on this, I'll wait a second.
Yeah, Amy, I see one question that is applicable here. You mentioned an economic study. Was there a cost to that?
Yes, there was. So we actually got a really good discount on that because it was one of the first ones that he kind of did. We paid $1,000 for it, but I think they run probably between $3,000 and $5,000 normally.
And so tell me again what his role was. Who did you find to do this?
Shannon Dick, he works for Finney County. He works with Lana Duval in the Finney County office. And I can't remember his title exactly. It has
Finney
something.
County Office of what?
Economic Development.
Okay, very good.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I think that's all the questions I see, but we can wait for anybody to
I think
ask.
we can kind of let them think, and then I can answer questions at the end too. So
Great.
Okay, this is what everybody always wants to know is about our funding, and I truthfully do think that this is one of the important things that you can think about when you're doing this. So people laugh at us because I tell, you know, they think that we are just going for big money and that sort of thing, big grants, whatever. So where you see fundraising, we actually sold Krispy Kreme donuts, and we did soup suppers, and we anything at the beginning of this that we could do. First of all, we wanted to get our name out there to the community and let them know we are community players. We're not just expecting to come in and get money, and you know. Second of all, we wanted to show people we were willing to sell Krispy Kreme donuts for a child care center. And we got some money. I mean, when you start adding up $1,000, that adds up quickly, you know. And we did some other things at Christmas time and just kind of fun kid things to try to get some money there. But hey, $127,000 from fundraising is pretty good. So, but as you can see, truthfully, we were a recipient of the Kansas Community Service Tax Credits. And if you don't know about that, I would love to have a conversation with you about that. I will be completely honest, that process made or broke our project. If we wouldn't have got community service tax credits, I truthfully do not think that we would be able to do this. And that was a huge, I told you we had a really hard hit, on some things, but there have been some really big highs on this project, and that was one of them. Getting that phone call that we got those tax credits was huge. We've also applied for, I want to say, 9 different grants and we've only been turned down once. We do have a grant writer on our board, which is huge. And I mean, we've all written grants, but she's like a pro. So pro tip, find a grant writer for your team, because that's really important. We've received grants from, let's just go to the next slide here. We've received grants from the Maybe Foundation, which has been our biggest one. We actually got more than we requested, $275,000. That was a challenge grant, so we have to match that grant with $264,000. When we can show them that we did that, we will get our big hefty check and be able to have that money. We also received funding from Kansas Children's Cabinet Grant, and that's a 3-year grant. And that grant's really interesting because we've been able to take money from that and buy equipment for the building. So we've ordered chairs and tables and bouncers and high chairs, books, dolls, anything you can think of. That grant has helped pay for. Also, that grant will pay for a 3-year salary for a director. So when we hire a director, we have that salary accounted for 3 years, which is a big deal. We've received grants from like Pioneer Communications, Midwest Energy. We got a grant from the Western Kansas Community Foundation, our local foundation. And then one of the big things that we've done is gotten pledges from our community. And so what we ask people to do is pledge $15,000 over 3 years, or whatever they feel inclined to do. When we knew that we were going to be, after we hired the architect and we kind of got an idea, we put together a really nice mailer, and we were able to mail a mailer to every alumni from Wichita County. And so, sometimes a lot of community members that have moved away still care about where they came from, and they still want to make a difference. And so we got about $80,000 pledged just from sending those out. And then we've had community members step up left and right and say, yeah, I'll pledge. And no pledge is too small. That's what we want people to know. If you want to pledge $500 for 3 years, we'll take it. If you want to pledge $100 for 10 years, whatever you want to do. We'd be silly to turn down money. So
Aimee?
Yeah.
We have Lucas from Lindsborg has a question, and I hope that he might be able to unmute and ask his question.
Okay.
So, and maybe I've misunderstood, but you have a funding gap right now, Aimee?
Not yet.
Not yet.
But you expect a funding gap of 400,000, right?
Yeah.
And have you had any conversations with banks about financing? And do you know whether or not you'll be paying sales tax on your materials?
So we do have to pay sales tax on our materials, but we don't have to pay sales tax on, it's kind of tricky. We have to pay sales tax on the construction material. Right. We don't have to pay sales tax on any of our other stuff.
When we realized that we were going to have to pay sales tax on construction materials, we went down the road to an industrial revenue bond. And that gets us a project exemption certificate so that we don't pay sales tax on our construction materials. It also allows us to debt finance part of the project.
Okay.
Industrial revenue bonds. And where do you get those?
That would be a partnership with the city or county.
Okay. Thank you, Lucas.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And to answer your questions, we've talked to both of our local banks. And we do have one bank that is willing to gap finance us, but not for $400,000. And so we are figuring out a way to come up with more money, and then we'll get gap financing from them if we need to. We did, yeah.
We need to pay attention. There's a new initiative for nonprofits through Network Kansas, and it's funded by Kansas Health Foundation and Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I'm forgetting who else, but we need to pay attention for all of you. It's called Networked, the Partnership for Community. I'm not going to get that right. Maybe somebody can help me, but it's a brand new initiative that's just starting this year, but it's meant to bring nonprofits the same kind of support that entrepreneurship has received through those networks. So check out Networked, and I'll put the link in the chat.
Okay, thank you. We did receive a 0% 10-year, $200,000 loan from Wheatland. So we have to pay that back. But it's, I'm going to mess up the name, a red leg loan. So I can't remember how to pronounce that. I think that's right.
I think it is right. Or close.
Yeah, it's close. But that's been really helpful too. And so we've really, we've really tried to use every avenue of funding that we can find. We have an application out there now for the Downing Foundation. We have not heard from them yet. And KCIF has $250,000 that we can use if we need to use that. So that truthfully has been the hardest part of the whole process, is the funding. We did, one piece of advice I would have is that we put out for bid on our project. And for those of you that don't understand the lingo, that means that we invited 3 contractors to give us a bid on the project. And then we looked at their bids, and so pretty much we give them our timeline, we give them the whole project specs, whatever, they come back to us with a price. We ended up only getting 1 bid out of 3 back, and it was because of our timeline. And so then we rejected the bid, and we actually ended up picking the person we wanted to work with from the beginning, and we went into negotiations with them instead of rebidding out and having to reinvite everybody and stuff like that. So we are working with Dick Construction out of Finney County, and they have been absolutely amazing with this process. They lowered their fee, the percentage of their fee down to meet our budget a little bit better. They've gone back and forth with their subcontractors. We've changed a few materials. We've changed the outside of the building to meet our budget. Just lots of back and forth, and they have been absolutely amazing. And so I encourage you that if you get to that process, pick who you want to work with, talk to them, and enter into negotiations with them, instead of, because we wasted 3 weeks waiting on bids to get 1 bid that we were, we didn't know that was going to happen, but we learned the hard way that we should have just went into negotiations. So we will be signing a contract with them, hopefully any day now. And we are doing a groundbreaking ceremony on Monday. So it's been really exciting. We hope to be open by January 3rd, which is when when winter break is over. And we're still continuing to get funding. We're still reaching out to community members. And, you know, and I think it's just human nature. We all like to see something tangible. When you give, you want to see what your money's going to, and you want to see it. And so I think having our groundbreaking ceremony and people seeing the big excavator there and kind of realizing, oh my goodness, these girls are not messing around. This is actually happening. I truthfully think that some of those people who have been on the fence are going to step forward and, you know, and we are doing our project in phases. We didn't initially want to do that. So we're doing phase 1, and truthfully, we should just be able to roll right into phase 2, but it's between our architect and contractor. That's kind of how they thought we should move forward with this. And so that's kind of what we're doing there. So, what am I forgetting here?
I'd invite any of you. We've got some other experts on the call. Yeah, this is great, Aimee. To insert your expertise and your experiences. Lucas at IRB was very helpful information. Let's see what else people can offer about their experiences.
I think the other thing that has come to mind as I was listening to you, Aimee, and it looks like a beautiful project. One of the stakeholders that we've considered very seriously in our project is people who don't currently consider Central Kansas a place they'd like to live and work, because we need them to want to live and work here. We've got a lot of jobs to be filled, whether that's healthcare and education or industry here in McPherson and Saline counties. And so that is a major stakeholder group for us that we think about a lot. And I think that's part of why it's important to do the project right. The way that you're doing it, you know, a beautiful facility that somebody considering relocating from Dallas, will go, oh yeah, that is care that I can recognize that is attractive to me.
I find it really exciting. I worked on early childhood initiatives in the 90s, and it's like really exciting for whole communities to understand the role that childcare plays, and not just early childhood development or moms, who a lot of people don't seem to care very much about, to the fact that this is economic development. This is about productivity. This is, this is very real about workforce development of these children who will be on our workforce a lot sooner than we think they will be. So I find the change in attitudes a lot really helpful. Carrie, do you want to share a little bit? Carrie Folletti, do you want to share what you're about the Kansas credit tax credit facilities? Community facility tax credits?
Yeah, I was visiting with Dustin Gale, so we're trying to construct, and so that's why this is very interesting too. I mean, everybody's dealing with this. So we were looking at any of the CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant programs, that require the nonprofit. So there's different ways that you can be using their economic development grant. But he also said, since we're working with business as well, he recommended the community facility tax credits. So they can basically use those credits to buy all of the tables, chairs, curriculum, finishing out. So we have a shell of a building that we're gonna have to renovate and turn it into a childcare, but that's what he recommended would be a really good fit for the tax credits. So we missed it by 2 days because they were due, April 30th, I think.
Oh, shoot.
But these things, like you were saying, oh my gosh, we've been working on this I think I've been working on it for a decade to figure out how to solve this problem. But so that was what you mentioned. And we're also a really close partnership with our community college. So they've been working on this for a long time and have put together and done our impact studies and that. But she also has a degree program. So this is going to be a good partnership with them for her students that are going through to be able to get some of their experience and their classroom work working with this as well. So hopefully have that, solving that workforce problem and the staffing problems, because we're going to be looking at a pretty large center for a project here. So I think, Aimee, you've done a great job. That's a good presentation. So I'm going to look forward to sharing some of this information with my team. So, I mean, it's always kind of seeing what others are doing has been great. So
thank you, Carrie. And for those of you that didn't see it, this presentation and the recording will be available on our website afterwards. And so if you were on today, why I'll send you the link. It's available no matter what, but you'll get an email telling you where it is and when it's ready, which is usually before the end of today.
Something else I wanted to say, she reminded me, our FACS classes in the high school are going to actually be able to utilize the Child Care Center for some hands-on learning and kind of have a pathway to that early childhood. And so that's another way that we're partnering with the school to, get teenagers time with children and that sort of thing, and turn people on to this kind of work so that, you don't spend 8 months trying to find a director. So.
Exactly. Are you at all worried? I'm curious to know what people are talking about in terms of operating costs. Are you, is this going to be self-sustaining?
Yeah, that's probably one of the number one questions we get asked. How is it going to sustain itself? How is it going to work and operate? And we've been able to make the enrollment costs, what each child will pay, plus being part of a food program and that sort of thing. There's a reason why we're a nonprofit, because we will not be making any money, but we will surely be able to keep the facility running. And so, we hope that we find a director that is willing. In my head, our local foundation does a grant cycle 2 times a year. They grant anywhere from $500 to $1,500 to one entity. And so I'd like to think that our director will still be looking out for those sort of things and writing those small grants to things so that we're not having to spend that money that we are getting on, a new toy or a new whatever.
Yeah.
Use those grants. Another thing, a lot of people ask, you've given this presentation and I've heard you say nothing about your county or your city. Well, our county and our city have not given us any money for this project. They have doubted the project. We have 3 commissioners who still don't think it's going to happen. And so, we've done this completely without the city and the county. And, there's been times where I've thought, man, if they could just give us a little bit of money, that would really push us a long ways. But now that we're this far, it's kind of like, we're going to do it without them. And, we try to have a decent attitude about it because it is what it is, but we have done this completely without our county and city. And so that's encouraging for other people, because I know that other people have that same issue. It can be done without them. So
I've asked Jeremy Fight to unmute and share some of what he shared on the Kansas Leadership Center call. Jeremy, are you?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can.
And the one thing I was thinking of, and I love that you've gotten so many partners in your project. One thing we worked at with Lucas and Lindsborg, we've talked about a lot is that these big, beautiful facilities, and they're expensive, but also in the recruitment of staff and retaining staff. Like you said, the important part of having a great facility is sustaining that over, after the initial excitement for it. So just curious on if you have, recruiting plans for staff and getting some qualifications, which also includes dollars. As we talk about keeping his dollar or tuition low, is your fee structure sustainable over time? Or if some of these as we've learned in the last year, some of our dollars might actually, aren't always there when we need them in case of emergency. But, if a few dollars went away for a year or two, do you have a sustainable plan in place to keep those really highly qualified teachers paid and happy? So they're providing that good quality service on a consistent basis.
So I'm going to turn that around. First of all, Jeremy, would you tell us who you are and
Oh, sure.
what your experience is? And I'm going to turn it around into, please tell us, as an experienced center, how you've done that and what your experience has been about those sustainability issues.
Sure. So I'm Jeremy Fight. I'm with the Hilltop Child Development Center in Lawrence, Kansas. We are a NACE accredited institution. I guess next year will be 50 years that we've been open. When I arrived about 7 years ago to Hilltop, the average teacher salary is about $21,500 to $22,000 a year. And we had requirements for credential CDAs or degrees. Next year, we'll go into fall with the average teacher salary being just under $32,000. So a big initiative we had was paying people. And so, Aimee, like you were talking about, is finding dollars that may be available to help offset the cost of capital improvements or furniture. Things break. Kids are hard on things. My facility has about 312 kids also. So it is big. So somebody put in there subsidizing the older kids, to subsidize some of the younger kid rooms, which we have that flexibility. But even with all of that, with increasing salaries the way we did, the big thing we did was, where do we find highly qualified teachers and what salary would be reasonable to make us competitive with, say, the school district? Your partnership with the schools could, sounds great. But the question I have is, when you get new graduates, ours was, can we compete with the school district? Say early childhood is just as important as getting into that K-3 group. And so we're kind of we're within shouting range of the school districts for dollars. We're still a few thousand now less, and we work 12 months. So that's still something I'll never be able to compete with. But so we had to look at our budget and went through it with a fine tooth comb and realized kind of where we were heavy, and finding some dollars to offset those costs so we can give that money directly back to our staff. And every year we raise tuition. Next year we're going to raise tuition by 4%, which is a lot. But we've been very transparent in where that dollar will go, and showing how that will go directly back into the pockets of the teachers. And we found initially that we started this and people were like, yeah, you can't raise tuition 3 to 5% every year. People aren't going to be happy with that. I had a kid at the time in the building, and I was like, I don't want to pay 3 or 4% more either. But when we were transparent with our families, it was in 7.5 years, I've never had a parent complain that we're paying our teachers too much, because they want the best for their child. And so that was really important for us, is to be as transparent as possible. And as those tuition dollars have changed and gone up, we have worked twice as hard of also finding supplemental resources to help offset some of those costs. So some of our lower income families, we have a sliding scale fee, changing the way we budget for, half of our building paying at the lowest rate. Can we sustain our facility for that long a time? But then if we have more parents enroll at a higher rate versus a lower rate, we make more money on the other end. But budgeting for worst case scenario has really put us in a good position moving forward. I mean, we lost $500,000 last year alone just through the pandemic. But the way that our structure was put in place a few years ago, it allowed us to absorb that, pay everyone during a closure, and then come out on the other end this year, making up for about 25% of that loss in our first year, because people came because they were happy with our product. And so that was the big budget. Sorry, go ahead.
No, the thing that's really helpful. And I have 2 questions. One is, is there any way that people can pick your brain? Do you have these things written someplace that they can gather all that information? Because one of the things, or I guess we should put in here a link to the KLC video that was done, because that was really compelling to me. And the second thing was about the fact that if you can't get teachers because they can go someplace else, then you'll have empty rooms.
Yep.
And an empty room doesn't teach anybody anything.
It is, and that was again driving to get the best people in your building from your community and the surrounding communities. Like I said, empty rooms are no good. But I would say even through this difficult year we've had, I'd say our product and our reputation over the last years has brought people back. So even we all have up and downs for enrollment, everyone will. But the goal is to make those peaks or those peaks and valleys not as far apart. So you're staying as consistent. It helps with the financial projections and yeah, getting the best staff has been our number one goal, and then paying them a wage that they go, yeah, I can do this as a career. It's not a job, it's my career path. And that's been a real big push for us. So.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And for those of you, I hope you're watching the chat. And if you don't know how to save the chat, go into your chat feature, and next to your name are 3 dots, and you can press those 3 dots and save the chat for yourself. But I would point out, I think specifically for Aimee, but for any of you that might be thinking about this, Trish Giordano says that the American Recovery Plan monies that are being put out right this minute can be used towards childcare. So it's a great ask to ask your elected officials to designate some of that towards quality childcare. And Aimee, as you say, as people start to see dirt moving, why that might be a really timely ask.
Yeah, and I think Jeremy made a good point. We started off our enrollment fee pretty low, and we kind of got some feedback from some people that we knew were going to use the center as soon as they would be the first ones in line to enroll. And we told them that, and they go, "What? You cannot charge that. You've got to raise the price." And so what we realized is that, we're all parents. Our board is all parents, but parents are willing to pay
Yes.
or more for good teachers, and to make sure that they're taken care of and they have what they need, where you may not think that, but so we were able to kind of get that feedback and raise our enrollment fee, and that helped us a lot. So
that's fantastic. Lucas Neese here. That's fantastic to hear. The conversation around affordability is really important. And there's a couple different pieces to that. I think the federal government probably needs to play a role, and is going to play a role at least for the next year in affordability. But I think we talk about affordability as if all of our parents were line workers making $10 an hour. And that's not a lot of our families. A lot of our 2-income families are, a teacher and a physical therapist or something, and they're trying to decide, do we give up a $50,000 a year income to stay home with our kids? Or, actually we'd be happy to pay all of that income for a couple years to stay in the workforce and have childcare that we want. So I think the affordability conversation can be a trap a lot of the times.
That's a really compelling ask, actually, is to realize that even though you may not be making any money right now, you're holding your place in your position. And the continuity of care is an important aspect of whether or not your child is learning. If they're going to be faced with a new teacher every 2 months, that's really disruptive to them and creates a sense of insecurity that you don't want for a quality childcare. So we are running out of time. This has been so helpful. Aimee, did we get all the points that you want to make?
I believe so. I am all ears, and I would love email my if you guys, I can't find my chat. Nancy, if you want to type in my email address.
Okay.
It's BAKEAIM @ksu.edu. I would love to chat, set up Zooms.
BAKEAIM @ksu.edu.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Great. Yeah. That we're all do better together than we do alone. And I really appreciate that. Okay, so Our next call, I think, and thank you, somebody on this call actually. Oh, Wayne, are you able to unmute and tell us about the share that you gave today?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. Just wanted to raise awareness, and by the way, I really have appreciated the topic today, Aimee. Great information, and so thank you. But wanted to raise awareness for those service providers on the call that are working with small business owners. If you have not become aware of the SBA Community Navigators pilot funding opportunity, today at 12 noon our time, and I put the registration link in the chat, there is an information session on the program. This is a funding opportunity, a 2-year opportunity that will be tiered. It'll go from $1 million to $5 million for the organizations involved. And then locally, we're going to also do a call on Tuesday with those that are interested. And I'm talking about chambers and other service providers that are already working with small business owners. So I encourage you all to take a look at the chat, register for the call today at noon. And then also, if you reach out to our district office, or if you reach out to me by email, we can get you the information for Tuesday's call with the Kansas organizations that are interested in this program. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Wayne. And we are still, K-State Research and Extension is still doing grant workshops. We have 3 that are currently scheduled, and I've put the link to register for any of those into the chat. Are there any other shares from partners?
I'll just put in a plug for that workshop. I've attended that workshop twice, and it's fantastic. You should try it. It has helped us tremendous. Our whole group went to one that Nancy did, and without it, it's awesome. You got to do it. So.
Oh, thank you so much, Aimee. I really appreciate that. Okay, so I put in the chat the link to sign up. And if you want to host one for your community or your group, why just contact me and we can think about another workshop. They are all online right now. I don't know whether we'll go back to in person or not. I miss it, but right now they're all online. They cost $60. And it's 2 synchronous 3-hour sessions with lots of extra materials. Next month, our speaker is, we received this idea from one of you who attended online. Although agriculture is the largest economic driver in Kansas, consumers have seldom felt empowered to support local farmers. Join us next month on July 2nd to learn how to support individual farmers and gain access to local food. Rick McNary, who founded the Facebook group Shop Kansas Farms, and that group now has 148,000 subscribers, prove that people want local food, and he will tell us what he learned from that effort. And then Deb Brown, who is one of our favorite presenters from Savior.town, will share stories of other farmers selling local foods. So if you can, we'd love to have you join us. And our thought for the day as we leave came from the Pearl Harbor Memorial. Jimmy Doolittle said, and I think Aimee proved it today, there's nothing stronger than the heart of a volunteer. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.